Shut up and sit down.
Hey everyone, this is Tony Day, and today I'm going to be showing you how you can take the Pocket 4K footage and transform it into Red IPP2 using project settings and color management in DaVinci Resolve. First of all, I want to say if you hear like a rattling or something, I have the air conditioner on, so I do apologize if you hear it, but it's just too hot right now for me to turn it off. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the settings, and this will basically affect the entire project. So if you're using all Pocket 4K stuff, this is fine. Just keep that in mind. If you have different like mixed cameras or whatever, it might be weird. So we're going into project settings. We have color management selected here, and we're going to go to DaVinci YRGB color managed and get your stuff to look like this. So what we're doing is, this is kind of like the color space transform node that we use to transform the Pocket 4K footage into ARRI Gamma. The only real difference here is that it's going to affect everything in the project. So we're having an output color space, and we're to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, and we're limiting the output gamut to that color space, which is good. Also, we are using for timeline to output gamut mapping Red IPP2 gamut mapping, which is a wide gamut, so it's really good for if you have a situation like oversaturated blues, cyans, reds, that kind of thing, which the Pocket 4K has. The output tone map is basically like how much you have for your contrast in there. You can change all this. I'll show you what happens when you change it, and highlight roll off is going to be very soft. Most of us want a soft roll off and not a really harsh one, so let's just make that very soft, and we'll save that, and it'll do this. So basically this is just transforming it, like I said, into Rec 709, which is good for trying to get this stuff done pretty quickly. A lot of people like to just use even a color space transform node and just take the footage and throw it into Rec 709 without any LUTs, because for them that's like the purer way to make sure that they're getting what they want or have more control. So this is just a different way. I'm not going to say it's the best or worst way or anything like that. It's just different. If we look over here at the waveform, I'll just show you what happens if we choose, say, low, for example, for output tone map. You can see how it smushes in, okay? So I'm not going to say what's better or worse, just pick what works best for you. I'm going to choose high. Okay. So just like we did before, the first thing that we probably want to do is fix the color. So this is about 3200 Kelvin, and I'm not going to say lazy. I just like to be efficient with my time, so I'm just going to use a little medicine dropper. And I know a lot of the stuff I do is like kind of controversial to people for some reason, but I assure you that if you do things that are quick and they get you about the same place, you're okay. Name this white balance, and then we will also take the exposure and we'll pull it a little bit down. I want to get my mids about where I want them first, so let's say about there. And then I'm not actually going to saturate it anymore, because I actually like the saturation that you get from doing this method just like straight out of the box. So we're just going to go straight to contrast here, and I'm going to use lift gamut gain, because the point of this is to try to do this faster, not necessarily do I mean, you are going to have a bunch of control and you can kind of noodle it and get it exactly where you want, but one of the reasons I like using this kind of method is to get it where I want quickly. So we'll kind of add some contrast here, and you can see as I move the gain up and down, you can see how it kind of smushes the top a bit. So we're going to bring the gamma down a bit here, get it about there. Okay, maybe bring up the lift a little bit. This is massaging, ladies and gents. And then we can do, like we did before, use this shadow to kind of like crush a little bit of the shadows so that we have some deep blacks in there. So I'd say like this, we've got it pretty much where we need it to be. I mean, this looks really good to me already. I'd say that we're pretty close to where we were last time. So with this, the last thing that we can do in this node is do like a, let's call it like a flavor balance or whatever you want to do. I'll just warm it up a little bit. Let's just take the temperature and go say 100 with it. See what that does. So we'll go before and after with this. That slight little bit kind of makes it look a little bit more yellow, a little bit more warm. Let's go about halfway. A little bit more. Let's go 75. So that's just that slight bit that I think looks slightly better, which is fine. We can look at everything that we did. Looks pretty good, nice and, you know, neutral. Looks fine to me. I mean, this is pretty much done. If you want to do like a black and white balance and stuff like that, you can do that. If you want to do the desaturation thing that I did before that some people don't like, then, you know, do that. I also add sharpening at the end, like a slight bit, because I always down sample to HD in a very particular way to get the what I think are really good, nice sharp results without like people complain about sharpening halos and all that kind of stuff. If you do it the way that I do it, you don't really get that. I'll show you on this one why I like red IPP2 for the highlight roll off. Now, I'm not sure how obvious this is going to be for some of you at home, but let's just put on highlight recovery here. Back here on this stuff in the back, it's kind of a little bit clipped. I'll turn off our red IPP2 transform, and you can see, like, I mean, even in the waveform monitor, you can see how the brights kind of spike up like this. It's not really rolled off, you know, it's just like kind of bam, like in your face. So again, I'm not sure how obvious this is going to be, but a lot of times you have to massage this to try to get it down to what you want when you're not using, say, color space transform nodes to move it into another gamma that you find it is easier for highlights. Or it might be a little harder than doing the red IPP2 thing, but with the soft, with this very soft roll-off, you can see it kind of smushes it down a bit, and it just looks less in your face, that there's a specular highlight, just like, you know, it's almost like the visual poking you in the eye with its brightness. So it rolls it a bit better, and it just looks overall a little bit better. Now I'm going to change this to hard, just so you can see. Yeah, so you see that? See how it spikes it like way up like that? So with a hard roll off, it kind of pokes you in the eye with this brightness. But again, we'll go back, put that to very soft. You'll see how this kind of comes down a bit, and when we kind of move it, you can see how it smushes this highlight kind of in, I mean, it's a more pleasing look, and that's just what it's doing in the waveform. So I hope this makes sense. You know, it's kind of hard for me to explain because I don't know all the details of why it does what it does or why it looks better to us. But I just know that with something like that very soft roll-off, it just generally looks better, less distracting, you know, especially. So, yeah, so let's just put that in. You know, obviously these highlights are going a little nuts, so we'll kind of come down here. We'll go to our contrast, pull down the gain, doop, just like that. Maybe bring up the gamma. You know, situations like where you obviously clip something in the background that's a highlight or whatever, I mean, depending on how important that particular item is to the shot, I mean, it'll either matter or it won't. And again, we'll see here, bring down the shadows, kind of dip this down. And there we go. So this is, I mean, I would just leave this. This is looking okay. I mean, it's all, this is kind of a dark thing, and we've got everything kind of in here. I mean, this is all I would really do for shots like this. Maybe kind of adjust the balance a little bit because the skin looks a little grayed out. So maybe the only thing I would do for the rest of this, go to the timeline, add a node, and we'll call this saturation, luminance versus saturation. I'm actually going to do something different. I'm going to go to these, and I'm going to punch it up a little bit on these areas. Oops. Let's say 1.2 on both. Let's see what that does. So the only thing we want to do is kind of like increase the saturation only on those mid-tone areas. And, we can even take these and go like, go 0.5 with it. So, I mean, that's fine. I think that's pretty good. Gives a little bit more standout saturation with like the skin tones. We can even, go, that feels a little bit too much. You can always just, go to the gain, go about halfway with it, and just do that little bit of extra saturation. So you might, say, well, if all you're going to do is make it look neutral like this, what's the point? Why don't you just pick a Rec 709, look, or shoot with an 8-bit camera and just do it that way? Well, if you do that, you have to make sure you get the color temperature right. And I hate to tell you this, but, if you're shooting with a small crew, and especially if you're doing multiple jobs on that set, you're going to screw up. And having Blackmagic RAW, where it's, low, for what you get, it's the data rate's pretty low, and that it doesn't have a color space assigned, I can just change the color temperature to what looks right, adjust the white balance, and it looks like it was shot that way. When I'm trying to shoot stuff like this by myself, I don't have to worry about as much. If I overexpose it, I can just pull it down because there's that much data. If I underexpose it, I can boost it up. If, say, I needed to shoot it at 800 ISO but I shot it at 400, I can always increase the exposure. Usually I overexpose, but as you can see here, but it makes it easier. If you're shooting this kind of stuff and you want to get it to where it's going to be marketable, get it neutral, get it to look good. I've seen, I don't know how many lab videos like this one where the white balance is just atrocious, and either they couldn't fix it or they just didn't do it right when they shot, because it's really hard. Like, it's hard to get the color to match and make money without having to do a bunch of work in post to make it look exactly the same while you're trying to correct the white balance in camera. So this just makes it easier. I mean, being able to do what you just saw in that fast a time with this camera is just great to me. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something, and let me know if you do have any questions, and I'll try to help you out. Thanks.